In October 2015, the U.S. cargo vessel El Faro vanished off the coast of the Bahamas. All 33 people on board perished. It remains the deadliest American maritime disaster in 3 decades. The ship sailed directly into the path of Joaquin, a weather system that intensified into a Category 4 hurricane in under 24 hours. Search teams eventually located the wreckage sitting upright on the ocean floor, nearly 3 miles down. 6 months later, investigators recovered the ship's voyage data recorder, the black box holding 26 hours of bridge audio. When the National Transportation Safety Board transcribed those tapes, they heard something deeply disturbing. Second mate Danielle Randolph and the rest of the bridge crew were actively plotting the hurricane's coordinates. They knew exactly where the eye of the storm was, and they knew they were steering straight toward it. The transcripts reveal multiple crew members calling Captain Michael Davidson, who was asleep in his cabin. They repeatedly suggested changing course to shelter behind nearby barrier islands. The captain rejected the warnings, telling them to hold their course and run it. These were highly trained, experienced mariners, staring at hard evidence of a lethal storm. So why did an entire bridge crew sail to their deaths instead of physically taking control of the ship? On the bridge, the crew was monitoring a telecommunication system called SAT-C. This system constantly printed out the latest real-time weather updates directly from the National Hurricane Center. Down in his cabin, Captain Davidson was looking at entirely different data. He relied on voyage systems, a private weather forecasting service sent to his personal email. But those emailed reports were consistently 6 hours out of date. This map charts the ship's path against the 2 conflicting storm locations. The captain's outdated forecast positioned the hurricane safely to the east, allowing the ship to slip by. But the real-time data showed the massive storm dead ahead. This 6-hour lag meant the captain was making decisions based on a storm that was no longer where his chart showed it to be. Maritime tradition relies on a rigid, absolute chain of command. At sea, the captain is the sole master under God. Their orders are final. The aviation industry once operated the exact same way. In 1978, a captain was so focused on a landing gear problem, he ignored his flight engineer's warnings about their dwindling fuel supply. The crew deferred to the captain's authority until the engines died and the plane crashed. That disaster led to the creation of crew resource management. Airlines systematically retrained their crews, teaching captains to actively solicit input and requiring subordinates to forcefully object to dangerous decisions. The commercial shipping industry had no such standard for its bridge crews. Despite having accurate data, Danielle Randolph's calls to the captain remained suggestions, not demands. Even as she told her colleagues they were doomed, she continued to execute the captain's order to sail into the eye. By 4:30 in the morning, the El Faro was fighting 70-mile-per-hour winds. The sheer force of the storm overpowered the ship's autopilot, pushing the massive vessel into a severe 15-degree tilt to starboard. With the ship pressed toward the waterline, crashing waves found an open access hatch, called a scuttle, on the second deck. Thousands of gallons of violent seawater poured through the opening and cascaded deep into the ship's No. 3 cargo hold. This extreme angle exposed a fatal vulnerability. The engine drew oil through an off-center suction pipe. Due to the tilt, the oil sloshed away, leaving the pipe pulling empty air. Without pressure, automatic safety systems triggered a shutdown, resulting in a complete loss of propulsion. Without power, the 790-foot vessel became an unsteerable mass of steel, completely at the mercy of a Category 4 hurricane. Captain Davidson finally understood the situation's gravity. He placed a frantic call to corporate owners, reporting the dead engines and the flooding. Minutes later, he sounded the abandoned ship alarm. The final audio recordings capture him trying to help a panicked crewman navigate the steeply angled deck as the water rushed in. Days later, Coast Guard search planes spotted an oil slick, shattered lifeboats, and a life ring bearing the ship's name. There were no survivors. After a 2-year investigation, the National Transportation Safety Board published its final report. They concluded the primary cause of the sinking was the captain's decision to approach the storm, noting his failure to heed his crew's accurate warnings. Refusing to let the disaster be written off as a mere weather anomaly, the families of the lost mariners campaigned for legislative reform. They demanded a system where crews could protect themselves from poor leadership. Their efforts led to the Ham Alert Maritime Safety Act of 2018. The legislation mandates an anonymous digital reporting system aboard commercial vessels. Now, any sailor who spots a safety hazard or disagrees with a dangerous order can instantly alert the Coast Guard, bypassing the captain's authority. The El Faro disaster forced a reckoning with maritime tradition. This digital reporting system ensures that if a crew sees a lethal error, they finally have a mechanism to stop it, so that no sailor is ever again forced to choose between obedience and survival.